The time and place was difficult for a Norwegian named Knut Collett. Knut built his farm close to the Red River of the North, on the Dakota side. He worked from daybreak to sundown, all spring, summer, and fall, on more than 1,000 acres, and at the end of the year had earned himself enough to buy an overcoat and a new hat. Around Christmas time, he was able to send his nephews in Minnesota some money. He could only pay half their harvest wages. Knut thought maybe he could sell a statue he had found out on the prairie. Like his French surname, the object appeared without a clue as to its origin. The pastor was a learned man who collected, identified, and labeled mineral specimens, and kept 2 large volumes of natural history with fine print in his personal library. Knut decided to call on him at the parsonage. He brought along his 15-year-old daughter Odlug. It was the pastor himself who answered their knock. "Good dag, Knut," he said. "Good dag, fröken Odlug." Knut removed his cap. He had expected the hired girl or the missus to answer the door. Pastor Ananias did not stand on ceremony, still he was owed a level of respect above common courtesy. Knut said, "There is a small matter I need to discuss." Pastor Ananias ushered his 2 parishioners into a small parlor. He did not offer refreshments. After the proper amount of time had elapsed, Knut removed his dubious treasure from a cloth bag. Pastor Ananias examined it for several minutes, first with the naked eye, then with a magnifying glass. Finally he said, "This is green chalcedony with iron oxide inclusions. It is known as Bloodstone or the Martyr Stone. The red spots represent the blood of Christ. The stone is often carved to represent the crucifixion of our Lord." Knut took a long time to reply. He said, "This hardly looks like a crucifix." Pastor Ananias took down one of his big books. He opened it and laid it out on his desk so that Knut and Odlug could see. This is a representation of a flagellant. The woodcut illustration depicted a mostly naked man of handsome, muscular appearance wielding a whip. His back dripped with blood. The 2 men noticed that Odlug, who resembled a grown woman but was still very young, was taking far too much interest in the black and white picture. Pastor Ananias closed the book. "Många tack, Pastor," said Knut. Ananias nodded. Knut showed himself out without saying adieu. Odlug trailed behind. It was an hour before sunup that Knut and his son Petter were milking in the lean-to barn. A faint shadow moved across the prairie at a distance. The young boy asked some foolish question, på norsk, but Knut just said, "Hush." Something was not quite right. Due to the flat land and the absence of trees, he could see to the end of his driveway quite well, even though it was nearly a mile away. He saw 3 or 4 figures who looked like women in flowing skirts, but they moved like men. They were dragging an object. One of them carried a shovel. They worked for nearly a half hour, then lit what looked like torches. And then there was a flash of fire, a burning cross. There had been talk at church, but Canute hadn't paid much attention. After all, he wasn't Catholic or socialist. Even his membership in the Nonpartisan League had lapsed. He drank a beer now and then, maybe that was it. Or that his children were reading from a Norwegian language version of Luther's Small Catechism. Hard to tell. In Norway, Canute thought to himself, it would have been known that his ancestor took the name Colette from the farmstead of an immigrant employer. That was the custom. When the men had left, Canute and Petter walked to the end of their property line. Charred remains of wood and tar-soaked burlap smoldered in the gumbo soil. They kicked dirt over the site, then walked back to the house for breakfast.